All right, you are now live.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I will now call our meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. As we do always, I would like to begin by acknowledging that the HRM, or the Halifax Regional Municipality, is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So that's an important thing for us to remember. We're going to begin our meeting now with a call for nominations for vice president, and that is because Haneen, who was our current vice president, has had to resign, as I mentioned to you in the email I sent yesterday. And so now I would like to call for nominations. Oh, sorry, Elizabeth's going to correct me here.
I think we were going to do a roll call first.
Okay, I guess I sort of had done that. So I just want to make sure we know who's here.
Just on the live, so it can be seen by viewers.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we have Jackie, we have Liz, we have Maggie, we have Hannah, we have Becky, and Pam, and staff member Tracy Jones-Grant, and Elizabeth, and guest Cassidy, who is going to be speaking later, and Amy, who's also going to be speaking later. I wouldn't introduce Amy as a guest because she joins us most all the time. Thank you, Amy. So we're all good to go now, Elizabeth?
Yeah, we should be all good.
Okay, so back to the process for electing a vice chairman, I apologize. I'm calling for nominations. You can nominate yourself or you can nominate someone else. So are there any nominations for vice chair? Elizabeth, can I nominate anybody?
Absolutely. You
Maybe
can't
I'll
put
wait.
the motion on the floor, but you could second a motion. So you could
Okay.
ask someone else to
Okay.
move that a particular person be nominated.
Okay. I'm all ears.
I can put my name up for nomination.
I nominate Hannah.
I'll second that.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. Are there other nominations? I'll call for nominations for the second time.
Sure. Yep.
We'll call it a second time. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Third time. Are there any other nominations? There being none, help me out here, Elizabeth. I'm calling to have a.
So we will declare, or you would declare Hannah the successful nominee.
There you go. How easy is that? Thank you, Hannah. I declare that Hannah is the successful nominee and she is now the vice chair.
And then, sorry, no, there actually is one more. So she's the successful nominee. Now we would place a motion on the floor with a mover and a seconder to appoint the successful nominee as vice chair.
Okay, maybe Pam was going to do that, I bet.
I
Okay.
make that motion to appoint Hannah as vice chair.
And a seconder?
Second
By Becky.
Councillor Kent.
And any discussion, any question? Comments? Ready for the question? All those in favor, wave your hand or say aye.
Or say aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Okay, motion is carried and Hannah is now vice chair. Thank you very much, Hannah. That's great. We'll love having you there. Okay, the next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the July 6th meeting, 2023. Those were circulated to you. Oh, Jackie, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about our EDI statement around who serves as chair and vice chair. And so what I mean by that is if we believe that Black, Indigenous, and historically underrepresented populations should be given first right of refusal. Again, not asking people to disclose their background, but I wonder if there is a statement or a policy about who serves as chair and vice chair, given the importance of EDIA in HRM and everywhere else. Thanks.
Good question.
I can speak to that. I do fall into the EDI categories as a Black individual with a disability. I'm happy to continue this conversation off screen as well, but I do represent that community.
So can I make a friendly suggestion that before we vote people into chair and vice chair roles, that we actually do consider EDIA as a consideration before we nominate people? And so in other words, the slate, I know this is awkward because we're doing this on the fly, but I think in preparation for meetings, it would be good if we actually had sort of a conversation about the importance of EDI and remind people and send the policy about EDI considerations out to everybody in advance of this, so that we're not actually in a situation where people are voting on the fly without actually understanding the importance and applying the importance of EDI as we go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important point. Thank you very much for making that. And I don't think that would be difficult for us to do. So just a good reminder for that. The other thing is, I would just comment that probably all of us on the committee are to some extent representing a very diverse population, as Hannah just has told us about herself. And with regard to myself, I'm a member of the Métis Nation of Manitoba. So I'm a member, an Aboriginal person in Canada. But that would have been known when I first became chair, but it hasn't really come up since that time. Pam, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I would just recommend, Elizabeth, if you could make a note, please, that perhaps we should look at our terms of reference, maybe update section 15 with regards
Absolutely.
to the election of the chair and the vice chair. I think that's what Jackie is pointing out. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Pam. All right. Are we ready then to move on to the approval of the minutes? Okay, they've been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions or amendments to the minutes? There being none, then I'd ask for a motion to accept the minutes as circulated.
I'll move to do so. Oh,
No, go ahead, Liz. Go ahead.
no, Becky, you go for it. I'll second your motion. I'm just here to lift you up.
Yeah, I need to move the approval of the minutes for July 6, 2023. And I should note that's a good one for me to do. It's my birthday.
Oh,
It was my birthday.
yeah, there you go.
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
and seconded by Liz. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion's carried. All right. I have now a motion with regard to the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. And I know, Becky, you would like to make an addition to the order of business. So
Yes, I'd like to ask that the committee consider an added item of an update on the retirement of the police chief, and I'll do that from my position as chair of the Board of Police Commission.
Okay.
So it's been suggested it be we'll put it in as 9.32.2, and then Councillor Lovelace has suggested that she'd be open to changing it if we run out of time.
okay.
Perfect. So you are moving that as
Yes.
the addition? Okay.
Could I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Pam. Any questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. So thank you, Becky. Glad you brought that to our attention. Item number 4, business arising out of the minutes. I believe there, sorry,
So now I,
need to approve the
Counselor
agenda.
Lovelace or Ken could correct me if I'm wrong, we'll need to approve the order of business as
Yeah.
amended.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Motion on the floor to approve the order of business as amended.
Second,
Thank you. Moved by Becky and seconded by Pam. Thank you for that help there, Elizabeth. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. Get through that, logistics. All right, are we on to business arising, which I believe we have none. Now, you've seen the agenda. You know what's going to be discussed. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared? All right, we'll move on. Consideration of deferred business. To my knowledge, there is none. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
That is correct.
And correspondence, petitions, and presentations. Item number 7. I do not believe we have any correspondence. Is that correct?
Yeah, no correspondence has been received and no petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Okay, and there are no presentations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Information items to be brought forward. I don't believe there are any. So that brings us directly to item number 9, which is reports from our staff members. And we're delighted that Amy is going to update us on her work with the Safe Cities and Safe Public Spaces program. And remembering that Amy Brierly is a program coordinator with that program. So lots of expertise, and she's helped us out a lot in the past. So we're looking forward to what you have to say, Amy.
So Amy, I'm just going to promote you to co-host, so you'll be able to share your screen for your presentation.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna get myself set up here. All right. Yeah, thank you, Jane, for the introduction. What I'll be sharing with you folks today is in particular around a tool and process that we facilitate from the Public Safety Office in the Safe City and Safe Public Spaces program. And it's called the Women's Safety Assessment. And this is in relation to the work that you folks have been thinking about and having conversations about in the work plan for the committee around safety in public spaces for women and gender diverse folks. So this is one tool, one process that we use. It's by no means the be all and end all, but it's definitely a contributing process that can help us understand safety from many different lenses and views within public spaces. And I can't off the top of my head, I think this may be, Jane, you may already have seen a presentation from us on this, but with most committee members being quite new, this may or may not be new to you, but hopefully it'll be a good overview. So I'll start with what is a women's safety assessment, and throughout the presentation, I'll refer to it just in short form as a WSA. So the Women's Safety Assessment is a participatory tool that's used to build safer neighborhoods, schools, parks, campuses, workplaces, transit systems, and other public spaces. It brings together community members and other important partners to assess the space and make recommendations for its safety. And this tool is really meant to be grounded in women's, girls, and non-binary folks' expertise and lived experience from using public spaces or potentially choosing not to use a space because of safety concerns. So the history of the Women's Safety Assessment. Women's safety assessments were first developed in Toronto by the organization METRAC, which is the Metro Toronto Action Committee on Public Violence Against Women and Children, in 1989. And since then, this tool has been adapted by many different communities around the world. And I would say, this organization is sort of seen as being the organization that made this tool popular. But at its core, this is really I would say a framework that can help facilitate conversation in public spaces. And so when you think of it that way, really women and gender diverse folks have been having these conversations about public spaces even before 1989 and even before METRAC sort of coined it the Women's Safety Assessment. So it's built on many, many years of the sort of contributions and expertise of women and non-binary folks across Canada and across the world. So the tool builds on the best practices of crime prevention through environmental design, which is another tool used by a variety of organizations and institutions that looks at this one. The CPTED looks at crime prevention and that the way that we design our spaces can prevent or mitigate crime. But the Women's Safety Assessment takes some of the principles from that, but incorporates culturally competent, asset-based, gender-based approaches. So the tool itself, when we use the tool in a public space, the questions and the conversation really all revolves around these 7 principles of design. So I'll walk you folks through these 7 principles, and these are the things that we're exploring and talking about when we're in a space together. So the first one is know where you are and where you're going. So this refers to things like signage in the space, signals, orientation, really looking at the things in the space that allow someone to know where they are and where they're going. See and be seen. So oftentimes lighting is a big part of this conversation, looking at how lighting can make a space feel safer or conversely not feel safe. Looking at visibility, so things that get in the way of seeing and being seen, and hiding places that could be of concern to folks. Hear and be heard is another principle. So oftentimes in this section, we'll talk about, who's in the space. And usually there's folks that are part of the assessment that use the space quite often. And so they have a sense of who comes into the space at what times of day, when can you expect people to be in the space, when can you expect more people to be in the space, how are people using the space? And then looking at kind of in the public space, is it easy to communicate with other folks? So in the case of an emergency, would it be possible for you to be heard by someone else in the space or in the surrounding area? Another principle is being able to escape and get help. And so this is very similar to hear and be heard, but looking at the public space and assessing it for whether or not it's got multiple route options for folks to enter and exit the space, whether culturally appropriate emergency services are accessible. And then a conversation around informal and formal surveillance in the space, which, it's again a prompt. We know that for some communities, things that we know as formal surveillance can actually make a space feel more unsafe. So another one is a clean and welcoming environment. So in this one, we look at the design of the space, maintenance of the space management, and how the space is organized and how that leads to folks feeling safe or not feeling safe. Working together, which really looks at community participation, grassroots involvement, and partnerships that work to activate the space. And then accessibility and inclusion. So looking at features of universal accessibility, looking at how the space is used in terms of its flexibility. So being accessible to many different communities with many different needs. And then potential barriers to access, whether that be physical barriers or social barriers. So this slide here really talking about when we started to use this tool in HRM through the Public Safety Office. So in 2020, the Public Safety Office hosted a workshop with a consultant who specialized at that time in women's safety assessments and assessing this tool as it was used around the world. Since then, the tool has been supported by organizations like UN Women, and many different organizations around the world are using this tool or different iterations of the tool. So many different folks in community were trained as women's safety assessment facilitators, and these community members continue to support and facilitate the women's safety assessments to this day. So when we get a request for a women's safety assessment, we put out the call to the group of folks who are trained in facilitation, and usually, depending on the size of the group, would have 2 or 3 folks who would support us in facilitating the assessment. So these are some of the women's safety assessments that we have completed. This is really just a list of some of the places that we have conducted an assessment. So Finley Park, Harborview Elementary School, Jason McCullough Park, Simmons Road, North Preston, Morash Park, Quimpool Road, and Chebucto Road Park. So I would say mostly the assessments that we've hosted have been focused on roads or streets as well as parks. We haven't done any yet on, say, for example, a transit route, but the tool is flexible enough that it can be used in multiple different public spaces. And so I'm hoping that I'm gonna be all right with my technology here. I'm gonna give you folks just a little view of the tool itself and what we use when we go into a space. So I'll just take a second. Is that large enough for folks to see? Okay, great. So just quickly, I won't go through everything in detail here, but this will give you a sense, like in the practical sense, what do we do when we actually do an assessment? So we arrive at the space, we do a bit of an introduction and we assign roles. Folks will take on different roles during the assessment. So some people will take notes, some will take photos. Some will sort of keep an eye out for things happening that maybe we're missing when we're kind of looking through the framework. So we start with our introduction and then we look at the first impressions of the space. So we really encourage folks to use all of their senses and to think about how they're experiencing the space in that moment. So we have some cues here for vision and hearing, smell, touch, feelings. So, you know, starting off the assessment, does the area feel busy? Does it feel isolated, comfortable, safe? And then we go into the principles of design and we have several questions that are prompts for discussion as we go through these. So depending on the space, we may or may not lean heavily on these prompts. Usually folks immediately start to identify these pieces without there needing to be prompts, but these are here to sort of help the facilitators guide the conversation. So we look at signs and signals. We look at whether signs are easy to understand, regardless of your language or reading ability. Are signs visible? You know, what signs should be added and where? Having some conversation about, you know, if you weren't familiar with this place, would it be easy to find your way around and why or why not? In See and Be Seen, we talk about some of the things that I mentioned earlier in my slides around, you know, seeing clearly ahead. Can other people see you? Are there obstacles, lighting, or other features that impact your ability to see or be seen? We have some conversation about what would improve visibility in the space. Hear and be heard. So we talk about, you know, who would hear your call for help? Who's the nearest person that you might be able to ask for help? How far away are they? Is it easy to predict when someone will be in the space? And who is likely to be around at different times of the day? conversation about being able to escape and get help. So how easy would it be to escape? And if you needed help, who might be able to help you? And then we look at pieces around whether or not there are culturally relevant resources in the area. So having a conversation about, the different communities that use a space. Are there communities that would feel safer reporting an instance that they feel unsafe or that they're in an emergency? And are there nearby resources that could support with that? And then a conversation about surveillance cameras, which in and of itself is a much larger conversation, again, about surveillance in our communities and whether or not the presence of cameras actually leads to greater safety. But oftentimes they do come up as a conversation, as there are varied opinions, usually in our groups of community members around, if they see a security camera on the road that we're assessing, does that lead to feelings of safety or does it inhibit safety? So inclusion accessibility, we look at whether or not the routes in the space are well maintained and physically accessible. So looking at the sidewalks and paths, is the ground even? Are the routes accessible to people using mobility devices and strollers, for example? We look at who might feel included in the space and who might not feel included. And then are there materials, tones, or colors that would improve the sense of safety? And then any other recommendations for inclusion and accessibility. The clean and welcoming environment, we look at maintenance, how long repairs generally take, whether or not there are places to dispose of garbage and compost or recycling. Is there litter or debris in the space? And then what makes the space inviting and what could potentially make it more inviting for people? And the idea for many of these pieces is that it's sort of one of the foundational understandings of the tool that, for one, when women and gender diverse folks are able to get together and talk about their experiences in public spaces and the way they see the space around them, the recommendations that come forward are beneficial for all people who use our public spaces. And also that the idea that if people feel safer in a space, if they feel seen, if they feel reflected and they want to spend time there, that actually that means more people will spend time, and therefore the presence of more people will have that domino effect of making the space feel safer for more people. So it's really about activating our public spaces in a way that really makes great use of them, and that we make changes that allow people to feel like spending time in the space. Then we have working together, which really is looking at how community already uses the space, who's involved, what are some partnerships potentially. Sometimes there'll be community organizations that really steward the space, whether that be a park or a playground. And then we end the assessment with our priorities. So we have a conversation about what folks like most about the space, what's really working well, what the most important challenges or concerns were during the assessment, and then what the top recommendations for change in the space are. So I will stop sharing, and I just have one conclusion slide that I will share with you folks. Okay. I somehow have lost control of my mouse. Okay. For some reason, I can't get to presenter view, so I'll just have to leave it at this view for now, but hopefully folks can still see it. So I just wanted to say a quick note too about the opportunities for future development for the tool. So there is a lot of potential with this tool. It's really an opportunity to engage directly with community and have conversations about how they're experiencing public spaces. And then we as staff are able to play a bit of a connecting role. So when we hear about particular recommendations that come through in the assessments, we write up a report with all of the key priorities, some of the background and context, and then we're able to share that report with folks internally at HRM to pass along that feedback and potentially have some of those things changed almost immediately, depending on what the changes are. Some are much bigger, long-term recommendations, but some are really simple. So we can play a role in facilitating that process. These are the things we're kind of thinking about moving forward, using the women's safety assessment as a tool to monitor and evaluate women and gender diverse folks' safety in public spaces. So looking at a space, what people are feeling in the space, and then going back to that space after changes have been made and asking folks how they then feel in the space. Strengthening processes for understanding the impact of the women's safety assessment and the changes that occur as a result. Capturing and communicating our results. So one of the things that's really exciting is that folks who are in the GIS space within the municipality have created a tool for us where we can start to input the data that we get from women's safety assessments. And then say, for example, Parks and Rec staff can go onto this map. They can see where women's safety assessment has been conducted and then see the recommendations that have come from the assessment. And then we'll eventually get to a place where we can kind of check off that certain changes have been made, or staff could comment, this isn't our jurisdiction, we'll pass this along, those sorts of things. And then assessing more public spaces. So as the sort of appetite for these assessments grow, thinking about, we don't necessarily have to be the holder of this tool. It's definitely not our tool. We've adapted it from many different tools that have been used in the past. So how we can share this with other folks, other organizations who might want to use this tool themselves to organize their own communities around this. So that is my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Oh, that's great. Great, Amy. Really good refresher for me and probably some new information for some others. So let's start with Jackie. Do you have any questions or comments for Amy?
Yes, I do actually. So thanks very much, Amy. That was a really informative presentation. I did have a question about the inclusion of GBA. So that's a federal government requirement, but yet this is called the WSA. So it seems somewhat incongruent with the GBA because it's speaking specifically to women. So I wonder how gender non-conforming and gender non-binary or women presenting individuals, so trans women, for example, are captured in this particular piece of work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, Jackie. And I think that it is something that we might want to consider changing the name of it. We, in all of our communications, and whenever I speak about the tool, I communicate that the focus of the assessments are to gather women and gender diverse folks specifically, although the title itself, you're right, it doesn't accurately express that. So there is, I think that it's not a hard thing to change the name, and it would just take some work to kind of get the information out to folks so that they know that this is the same tool. It's also a bit of a, and I will say this is always in development. So like every time we do an assessment, we think about, okay, how can we change the tool? How can we change the questions? There's been many times that we've taken out questions because folks will say, actually, like that doesn't land well. Like when you ask that question, that the intent is not harmful, but the conversation could be. So I think the title is another one of those things that maybe saying community safety assessment, but in our sort of description of the tool, really still focusing that these conversations, because there are situations where a lot of vocal men would like to be a part of these conversations, and that is totally fine. Everyone's welcome to be a part of the assessment, but we really want to focus on creating space for women and gender diverse folks to talk about their experiences in public spaces. So anyways, I'm kind of rambling there, but I appreciate the feedback, Jackie, and I think it is on the horizon that we should be looking at a name change for the tool.
Thanks very much, Amy. And I think that to be congruent with the GBA, I think that name change is really warranted. And I think you'll find more individuals who are willing to respond because it's not calling it WSA. And I think there's some limitations, obviously. So I'm not suggesting that what you're doing is not fantastic work. It is, but it also means that there are some limitations in terms of who's willing to participate because of that. And then I wanted to ask a question about the data analysis and the sort of knowledge translation piece. And maybe that's not for tonight, but I just would be curious to know how the information is getting to policy decision makers and others to actually improve services and systems that are meant to actually tackle, for example, gender-based violence. Thanks.
Maybe we'll come back. That exact same was one of the same questions I had, Jackie. So maybe we'll let some other people ask some questions and come back to that at the end if we have time. Liz, it's your turn.
I think a lot of us had the same thought. We can call it great minds think alike or fools seldom differ, depending on how we feel. Yeah, that was really my question as well. And thank you for the presentation. It was super interesting. But I mean, you know, I'm an operational guy. So what I like to know is then we generate the data and then where do the data go? And I would love to go down a serious nerd rabbit hole with you about that GIS mapping that's being done, because that's very fascinating to me, but I will save everyone's time and sanity and just ask, like, is there a reporting process in place that says, you know, like, here are the major issues that we identified, here's the time frame, and here's where they went, here's the time frame that we gave ourselves to take a look at what to do about them, here was the outcome of those conversations, here's where we got to, like, what is the what's the way in which that's going to be reported internally and externally, I guess is what I would most like to know.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. So I will say that the tool is somewhat limited by our capacity, and we know that there's no point in using a tool like this if it's not actually going to lead to any change. So at the moment, like, we haven't, for example, had like a broad communication campaign to share this tool more broadly with communities and ask folks to, say, for example, suggest parks that would be most important to assess because of our like limited capacity to actually fill that need. So I say that because oftentimes the requests that we get for women's safety assessments actually come from HRM staff who are looking to make a change in the park or the street and are looking to have that GBA plus lens on the work and to have an opportunity to hear directly from community about what changes might desired in the space. So it's on a very at this point in time, like, micro level in terms of being able to have conversations with staff and say, okay, a new playground is being put in place, these are the changes that were suggested, and then following up to say, you know, were they implemented and what has the impact been. But I think the hope is that our team is growing and we do have more resources you know, with the direction that the public safety strategy lays out for us. Those sorts of questions are what we need to be doing more work on. And so the women's safety assessment tool will be one of the things that we really start to hopefully have more capacity to measure the impact. Yeah, so I mean, that's a bit of a long way to answer the question, I guess, but
that's my favorite way to get an answer. Actually, can I just ask one quick follow-up? And it's more of a curiosity question than anything. So feel free to just say, Liz, you're monopolizing the airspace, go kick rocks. But just because we've now mentioned GBA plus a couple of times, and I'm the resident Fed. So I'm interested to know, are you using the official federal government GBA plus assessment tool? And if so, is that because, like, is there federal funding coming into this in any way? Like, why GBA plus specifically? And are you like going through the whole GBA plus process and using their tool and doing that? And like, I'm just really curious about how that's being implemented and why.
And Liz, do you mean specifically for this assessment tool?
Yeah, like, I mean, well, I mean, in general, I'm always curious when I hear people say GBA plus specifically outside of the federal government, because it's something that I'm always interested if that means that there's some kind of federal federal funding involved, or if there's some kind of requirement that's been done, or if there's some kind of like, because there's so many tools for, and it just, by the way, we changed it, it's SGPA plus now. There's so many sex and gender assessment tools to evaluate the impact of sex and gender on various issues. And I'm just really curious, just since we're already talking about it, how this one sort of, what's the, you know what I'm trying to say. I'll just stop talking and then you can answer what you know I already mean.
Yeah, and Liz, maybe I can share a little bit about the tool, but I also think Tracy, I'm not sure if you would be, if you're open to kind of speaking about the broader approach.
Excuse me, I'm just concerned about time. This is the GBA Plus is a great topic of conversation. I'm not sure that this is the best time to do that. Maybe we could just go on to talk about the tool specifically, because others may have some questions about that. And if we have time, because I know the whole GBA Plus thing is obviously a big part of what's going on in the HRM. So would that be all right?
I told you you could tell me to go kick rocks, and I meant it.
So we'll come back to that. Okay, that's on. We won't forget it, and Tracy won't forget it, will you, Tracy? Okay, Maggie, I just want to give you a chance to ask questions or comments.
Yeah, I think a lot of great questions were being asked. So I just have a comment. Amy, great job, really amazing presentation you put together. And I'm really happy to see that Halifax in the near future will be a lot safer for women and a better environment. And I'm just very hopeful that this tool will be very useful for women. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Hannah, we'll move on to you.
Yeah, so my question was kind of answered, but I'm hoping for a little more clarification. Currently, how are you deciding what's being assessed, and can the community ask for something to be assessed? Because the tool is fabulous and I can see it being very beneficial, but I just want to know how the decision on what gets assessed and what doesn't happens.
Yeah, so no, it's a good question, Hannah. So community can request a women's safety assessment for sure. And there would be examples of that. So we have an upcoming women's safety assessment. So the community mobilization teams that are also part of the work in our office, some community members through the CMT requested one for the Central North area. So that's kind of on the docket. And I believe the Finley Park assessment was requested by community, and the Simmons Road in North Preston, I think, are the ones that were sort of sparked by community conversations. And the piece around how we kind of just say yes to whatever request comes in, but we know, I think on my mind is, as more people maybe learn about the tool, that's not really a sustainable way to for example, to decide which spaces should be assessed over others, because, when we look at that intersectional gender-based approach to the work, there are some spaces that that should be considered, I think, more highly or more in a time-sensitive way than others, depending on who's bringing forward the concern, what the nature of the concerns are. So we don't have a good system right now. So hopefully that we will build one. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Becky, it's your turn. Can't hear. Oh, passing? I can't hear.
Thanks, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, you're good. Pam.
Oh, I'm okay. Thank you. I've had introduction to this before. Amy, it's awesome. Keep up the good work.
Okay. So I just want to follow up on Hannah's points and Liz's point, basically, but it seems to me that the Women's Advisory Committee could play an important role in identifying areas where this assessment should be done. We all have we have a constituency. We we know our community, and we may, as a group, if we come together as a group and talk about it and say, okay, these are some areas where we think the assessment would really be important to have it done. I think that might be helpful. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you folks were interested in that, that would be, yeah, we could definitely do that.
Okay, so we could come back to that. And then the same is true, I'm thinking, in terms of sort of putting wheels under the bus. If there are assessments that have been done and your office is feeling like the action is not happening, maybe it's something that the Women's Advisory Committee could lend our support to by urging the Executive Standing Committee to make it a priority to take some action on a particular area. Do you think that's also feasible?
Yeah, hypothetically, I think it would be. Off the top of my mind, there aren't like particular changes that I might be able to suggest, but I think, yeah, hypothetically, that could be possible.
Yeah, ultimately, if there's areas where we think that action should be taken, yeah, that we could lend our support. Yes, well, obviously, this safety of women in public spaces was one of the priorities we identified for this year for learning about, and a concern to members of the Women's Advisory Committee. So I think it kind of behooves us to, having heard about this assessment tool and about the fact that it could have implications for actions, it behooves us to take a little bit of action on it. So not suggesting that we do that right now, but I am suggesting that we consider following up at a subsequent meeting to do that. The other thing is, I think, Tracy, what we need to do at a subsequent meeting is talk again about GBA analysis plus and the HRM and the work that your office is doing on this. I'm thinking perhaps next meeting we should follow up with kind of in response to Liz's point and address that. I can't hear you.
No,
I can hear you now.
my earphones aren't working. And I've got a little bit of an update in Bailey's update that I'm going to present later on.
Oh, today.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Actually, I don't even think I had that on the agenda. We will move on now. Thank you again, Amy, for this presentation, and to all of you for your comments and questions. And we'll move on to a presentation from Cassidy. Cassidy, help me with the pronunciation of your last name. Yachov?
There's a debate. My husband pronounces it Yochov, so that's what I go with. Half his family pronounce it Yachov. So it's a flexible last name, I feel like.
Okay. Well, thank you for your flexibility, but I'm going to call you Yochov then.
Perfect.
Okay, Cassidy Yochov is a
Sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
Jane.
Sorry.
I was just thinking, in the interest of time, I know Councillor Kent wanted to provide an update, and she has to
Sure.
leave at 6 p.m. Is that
Yes.
correct, Councillor Kent?
Yes.
If we want to have a motion to move that item up further in the agenda so that it can be considered prior to item 9.1.2.
Sure. Would the members consider that? Becky, do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'd move that we move that item 9.3.2 and to be immediately following 9.1.1.
Do I have a
Second.
seconder? Seconded by Pam. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Thanks, Liz.
Motion is carried. Elizabeth, do we need any further motions, or can we go with that now?
No, we can go with that right now.
All right. Councillor Kent, over to you as sorry, now help me. Are you the chair or are you a member of the?
I am the chair and I am a member of the Board of Police Commission.
Okay,
I
the
just
chair.
wanted to, and it didn't occur to me until today, so I'm really glad that I am really proud to be part of this committee now. So yesterday we had the chief announced, Chief Dan Kinsella for HRP announced his retirement. He will be retiring on, his last day will be September the 15th. So of course, and whether or not, I don't know how many of you may have seen this in the news. I wanted you to hear some of the details that may have not been captured in news media. So the board now has a function of facilitating the process to hire a new chief. We're looking to work with the CAO and municipal staff to do that as quickly as possible, as early as starting a recruitment plan for or action in the fall. So this is coming fast. We will appoint, the council will appoint an interim chief in the meantime. The difference for this one, and I thought it's worth mentioning, is the robustness of what we anticipate this search will be. We're at a very transformational kind of stage here in the municipality, and I think actually across the nation. Policing and service delivery is on a lot of people's minds, certainly boards and chiefs, and municipal units who are responsible for them. So that will be something that I will be, as the chair, working with the CAO and creating a fairly large interview team that we will be doing some stakeholder interest meetings to get a perspective on the skills and experiences and things that we would be looking for in a chief in the current climate here in the municipality. And so it just made me think of the Women's Committee here. The Women's Advisory Committee might be something that, well, it would be, if it's okay with everyone, that I raise that with the CAO and with the board, having you either in as a stakeholder engagement piece or even consideration on that interview panel. I think it's a really important piece, considering all of the challenges that women face and non-binary folks face in our lives in general, but certainly in the element of risk and crime and such. So it is likely that process will begin with no, it's not likely. We will be using a standing order with a recruitment firm that the municipality has. The first piece is for the board to pass it off to the municipality, because the municipality is in fact the agents that hire the new chief. So we work together on that, and we would expect by early spring is when we'd have a new chief lined up and ready to begin that role again. So I just thought I'd raise that with you so you understand that this has been thought through, and there are legislative requirements that we have. But I want, as a woman chair, I want to make sure that we have people at the table who have interests that can shape the way policing is done and shape our communities around safety. And I think this is a really important piece. So thought I'd just update you a little bit on that from my perspective.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's very important, and we're glad you're there leading the charge. Are there any comments or questions for Becky on this matter? Big job. Good luck.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Getting more diverse stakeholders involved in this conversation.
For sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And when the time comes that I have to slip out, I'll just
okay.
I'll leave and wish you all great success in whatever's left. Okay, thank you for the accommodation. Thanks.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. I appreciate that. Okay, Cassidy, we're coming back to you. And Cassidy, as I was starting to say, is the inclusion and accessibility specialist with Parks and Recreation. And I believe you're going to here to talk with us about a discount, accessibility discount program that you're beginning to think about implementing. So over to you, and then we'll have some questions.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a program that is already in, it's kind of been happening for a few years now, but we're looking to potentially address some barriers that we found. So I'm going to pop my slides up in a second, review the program with you folks, and then mention some barriers that I've already found in kind of my community consultations and consultations with other community groups and members, and then see if anything comes up in terms of I mean, obviously, being someone that applies for the program, it's an easier way to see barriers, but just kind of running through the process. If there's obvious things come up that I had missed, I just wanted to make sure I was kind of getting a diverse range of opinions, as this is it's going to be a report that's going to be going to council. So, all right, I think.
So I promoted you to co-host, so you should be
Okay,
able to share
perfect.
your screen and then share your slides.
Beautiful. Excellent. Is that working well?
Looks good.
Okay, I'm going to put it onto the actual slideshow. All right, so thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm really hoping to get ensuring that I'm getting a diverse range of feedback for the report that I'm going to be writing. So the origin of the report was that they were looking for a staff report around reducing barriers to recreation for vulnerable communities. And obviously, the Affordable Access Program, or Recreation Funding Access Program, is one of those ways to reduce barriers. However, there have been barriers identified to a program designed to reduce barriers. So it's our hope that we can kind of discover what the barriers are and then look at ways to how we can either eliminate them or reduce them or find ways around them. So just a little bit about the Recreation Funding Access Program. It's a program that is run through the municipality, funded by the municipality. Previous to this program, the municipality had used funding partnerships. So we had funded recreation activities through Jumpstart or other external funders. This is a program that's funded through HRM, which gives us the ability to kind of to be a little bit more flexible in terms of our requirements for proof of financial need. Also, gave us the ability to expand the program beyond 18. So previously in our program, which is called HRM Kids, it was a Rec Kids. It was designed for youth and children under 18. This program, we were able to expand to anybody who qualifies, regardless of age, would be able to receive 50 or 100% discount of the total memberships and programs. In HRM run recreation centers, this program is currently only offered in this way in HRM run recreation centers. Are some of our other bigger, what we call multi-district facilities, have their own, the facilities themselves are owned by HRM, but the programs are run by independent kind of boards. And they have their own funding programs, but they don't necessarily line up exactly with this program. So for the recreation funding program, there's no limits to the number of programs approved applicants can register for, and the discounts placed directly on someone's HRM recreation account. And so it just comes off automatically when you go to checkout online or when you register in person. Here is the table that we use to kind of to say kind of what would justify low income. And we have two categories. So we have the first category, which is a household income that qualifies for 100% discount. And this is following Statistics Canada low income cutoff table, and it's updated every year in January. And then in order to kind of have a little bit more of a broad reach, we also did a 50% discount. So this would just be we doubled the household income qualifier. So if you have 24,000 or under for 100% for one person, and then it would be 48,000 and under up until 24 for a 50% discount. And so this would just be a way to kind of eliminate some barriers for folks who may not be able to pay for an entire program, but would be able to pay for potentially half. So in order to apply for the funding program, you need to have a completed application form. I don't have the application form in the slide because it is 3 pages, and it was in my attempt to kind of embed it into the slides, I made it incredibly small and difficult to read. I did have it attached in the meeting, kind of in the meeting invite if folks had a chance to look at it. So we have the completed application form. The application form is for all 3 programs. So when I say 3 programs, it is HRM currently offers kind of 3 discount programs, for lack of a better word, across different business units. So there's the tax rebate program for property taxes. There's a 50% discount for transit, and then there's the recreation access program. So when they all came under one label of affordable access, they created one application form that you could apply for all three or one of the three programs based on your preference. So for our program, what we require for proof of financial need is the most recent notice of assessment for the current tax year for all adults over 18, and the child tax benefit statement for all children under 18, which would include household income and names of the children. And this was put into place to verify that the children listed on the application were the children that were residing in the household. That being said, we acknowledge that those things can be barriers to people's ability to apply to the program. So we have other ways in which people can demonstrate financial need. We accept Welcome in Halifax cards. These cards are issued to recent refugees coming to our province through either ISANS or through the Halifax Refugee Clinic. As well, we accept ISANS letters, letters from ISANS that say that they're clients of the program. Particularly people who are taking some of their pre-employment programs and are looking for transit passes. If they apply for that program and also are looking for recreation, we would accept that letter as proof of financial need. We also accept letters of referral from community clinicians working with the families, and that those could be, we have a whole host of community clinicians that we accept letters of referral from. They just have to be somebody who has enough contact with the family to be able to speak professionally about the family's financial situation. So I kind of spoke to this already. So the background of the program, the Affordable Access Program, has been a part of the combined, or the Recreation Funding Access Program has been a part of the Combined Access Program since 2019. And it was created partially in response to the statistics, 2016 statistics around child poverty, and Nova Scotia had the highest level of child poverty in Canada. And that is still something that obviously Nova Scotia is struggling with in terms of child poverty, as well as just Halifax has a higher kind of level, of a kind of poverty than some of the other areas in Canada. I'm sorry, I'm fumbling because I had my statistics all laid out on a little piece of paper and I've now lost them. Oh, here they are. Excellent. Sorry about that. So yeah, Nova Scotia is currently reporting one of the highest levels of poverty, 9.6%, according to Statistics Canada. And then Halifax's level of poverty as of 2021 was 8.2%, sorry. And visible minorities and first generation Canadians live in can experience a higher level of poverty than even kind of the baseline of the 8.2%. So as a result, we thought it was really important to make sure that our programs were as accessible as possible to folks who maybe couldn't otherwise afford them. And in doing a jurisdictional scan, we found that most recreation discounts in other municipalities, so they either limit the amount of programs that people can register for. So they say you can register for one swimming and one, we call them dry land programs, one program that takes place in a recreation facility, and then maybe 4 summer camps. Or they have a monetary value associated with them. So you can maybe have up to, I think the city of Toronto currently says a child under 18 can have up to $625 in recreation discounts, recreation programming for a 1 calendar year, and then they can reapply again for the next year. We're the only recreation discount program that I found in Canada that has unlimited amount of programs for which you can apply. All right, so I'm going to dive a little bit into numbers and statistics for a second, which I really enjoy. I apologize if you do not. I'll try not to. I've gotten feedback that I speak quickly, so I've been trying to slow down my speaking. But I apologize for those of you who aren't as interested in statistics. I just find it speaks to kind of the volume of the applications that we've had so far. So in the 2023 fiscal year, there were 13,012 applications processed for our funding discount. And just in terms of, we wanted to do a scan to see of those applications, why were they getting rejected? Who was getting rejected? What was the nature of the rejection? So we kind of looked at, as of, our fiscal year runs from April to March. So as of the end of March, what applications were rejected and why? So at the March 31st, 2023, 150 applications were labeled as rejected in our data collection system. So it's 11% of the total applications. And most were as a result of missing paperwork. So they're missing their notices of assessment or their child benefit statement, which 76%. And some have the correct paperwork, but we're missing an account in our system. So in order to have a discount placed on someone's account, they need to have an account created in our system. And in order to do that, some demographic information is required that we don't always capture in our application forms. So we just ask folks, they can call the recreation center, they can visit the recreation center in person, or they can set up an account online. And then only 0.06% of people that applied actually didn't meet financial requirements. So we're not seeing a lot of people applying that don't actually meet the requirements. And 14% of the 150 people were able to resubmit their paperwork in the next year and were approved. The Recreation Access Program, unlike other programs, we don't necessarily follow an opening and closing of our applications. We have a rolling application kind of acceptance. So it kind of makes it challenging for data collection, but that it does remove a barrier for folks to be able to, they don't have to wait to a specific date to apply. They can apply at any point. And they can continuously reapply as well. So there's not a limit to how many times you're able to apply to the discount. And one of the reasons why we were thinking, you know, there was 14% of people didn't only 14% of people resubmitted their paperwork because of the nature of the fact that you have 3 programs folks are applying for. Sometimes somebody is looking for a property rebate and then say, oh yeah, cool, recreation, sure. Click on click that check as well, but then they don't necessarily, maybe they don't have an account. So I'll connect with them and say, you need to set up an account. And they're like, oh, that's too much work. I was just really looking for the property rebate. So sometimes it can be having all of the, having everybody on one application form can be a fantastic way to introduce people to a program they haven't known before. And for some people, it can just be, if it's going to be any additional work, they're not going to be interested in necessarily using the program. And so then thinking about, so those are the amount of people that applied. And then in the same fiscal year, 3,314 registered clients had the discounts placed directly on their HRM recreation account. And this is obviously a much larger number than the amount of people that registered. And that just goes to show it was a lot of families register. We certainly do see, you know, single adults or families that only have adults in their family, but a lot of times we see families with, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 children. And so we see, you know, we have 1,000 applications, but we have 3,000 discounts being placed in accounts. However, the interesting thing, and this is something that I would love to kind of figure out some more information about, of those 3,000 registered clients, only 1,000 clients actually registered for programs. So 3,000 people had discounts placed in their HRM recreation accounts, but only 1,504 clients registered for programs using their discounts. And here's where I think we kind of nail down exactly what a lot of people are using their discounts for. Half of these registrations happened in July and August, which is the same time as our summer camp programming, and 93% of the registrations were connected to youth clients 18 and under. So I think using that data, we can kind of really say that a lot of our funding is going towards our summer camp programs, which of course is used as a lot of folks for kind of childcare in the summertime. All right, so now I'm going to jump in a little bit into some of the barriers that I've identified or community members have identified in conversation with community groups. I have been reaching out to different community groups to be able to spread the word about the program. That is obviously one of the barriers, is that a lot of people, once they do find out of the program, they say, oh, I wish I'd known about this program sooner. You know, I had been trying to go through Canadian Tire Jumpstart, and there sometimes are, you know, additional hoops, and they have application processes where they open and close their application and they miss the deadline. So people are always really excited when they hear about the program, but they sometimes feel like they didn't know that it's not necessarily as widely shared across kind of different community partners or even by HRM. I know HRM last year did a really great social media campaign around the Affordable Access Program. And I've been definitely connecting with lots of community partners that serve populations that I feel like would benefit from this program, and kind of connecting on how they can both use our programs and then use this program and then register for our programs as well. Another piece of feedback we got, our application form was far too complex. I think by the nature of trying to simplify things and having an application form that has multiple programs, if you're just looking for the recreation access discount, it can be very confusing. And I've had people who have applied for the wrong program by accident and were rejected and said, well, I wasn't looking for that program. Or I've worked with the Prescott Group, which is a group who works with individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities in the community. And they said that their participants would love to come to our recreation programs and would certainly qualify for the discount. However, having them independently fill out the application form it would be far too challenging. The application form is only currently available in English. We do have, at some of our recreation facilities, we do have a form that we've done where we have the English section, and then we have on the other side like a translated section to say what we're looking for in each area. And our front desk staff work very, very closely with families when they come in, our families and just the general public when they come into our recreation facilities to help them fill out the form. In terms of getting the basic information and showing kind of examples of what paperwork we're looking for. Another big barrier to the application form process, so people don't even apply because they feel like they don't have access to their financial paperwork and there's no point. So maybe they didn't file their taxes, or they filed their taxes late and don't have their most recent notice of assessment yet. They don't have easy access to their notices of assessment or child benefits statement. And one we see quite a bit is a gap that's certainly been identified is people who are new to Canada who haven't yet filed taxes but aren't connected with a program like iSTANS. They've come in on a closed visa, so they've come in sponsored by a workplace. So they haven't yet filed taxes. They're not necessarily working with like a resettlement organization. So that's kind of a challenge that we've been kind of working through to see how can we help to serve some of those folks. And then another barrier is once people get there, and then this may speak to the amount of people actually using their discounts, when people get their discounts and they get through the process and they're approved, sometimes the registration process for our programs can be challenging. People may not understand how the registration process works. It happens on specific dates at specific times, and as we all know, are very popular and can fill up very quickly. And then we also are seeing the similar issues that I think everybody sees when they offer something for free. We certainly have an increase in no-shows to programs. We have folks registering for multiple programs within the same time frame. For example, summer camps, choosing 3 summer camps that are happening on the same week, and then deciding on the week of which camp they would like to go to. And from my perspective, the biggest barrier for these two kind of issues would be the inadvertent blocking of other people being able to access programs. So registering for a program and then deciding to not go or deciding maybe on the Tuesday of the program when it's already started that you're not going to come would mean, unfortunately, that another child or another person, depending on which program and the age of the program, has missed out on attending something that they would have been interested in and would have gained some skills. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit kind of around the no-shows to programs, because in our opinion, that's one of our biggest barriers that we're seeing and one of the things that we're struggling with the most, because we want to offer as much as we can to folks, but we also don't want to inadvertently create our own barriers by having people not showing up to programs and then our programs operating at less than full capacity. So participants with 100% discounts are more likely to miss full weeks of summer camp, especially summer camp programming. This is one of our most popular programs, and this is a program that we can more easily keep statistics in terms of attendance. So we can have it's not just anecdotal. It's not just like, oh, I think this happening. I'm reviewing all of the attendance statistics right now. And so we can really kind of show this as a demonstrated kind of thing, as opposed to, just something anecdotally that you might hear from folks. They're more likely to miss full weeks of summer camp programming than participants with a 50% or no discount. They're also more likely to register for multiple weeks of program for one participant in the same week. So I just picked a specific example because I had some data from this program. And I had picked the Bedford Hammonds Plains Community Center specifically because this area, some of our a Legend team, or where that kind of runs our software, had done some statistical analysis for me around who uses the Affordable Access Program from what area code, and the B3M area code, which is kind of in the Bedford area, was one of the highest uses of the Affordable Access Program in terms of applying and then also being accepted. So in the 4 weeks, I looked at the first 4 weeks of summer camp programming, so the first 4 weeks of July, because that's the data I had when I made this presentation. So 41% of the participants in the Bedford Hammonds Plains Community Center summer camp program used an access discount, 50 or 100% to enroll in day camps, which is awesome. And I think that piece is fabulous. The piece that we struggle with a little bit is that of these participants that enrolled using their access discount, 83% missed 3 or more days of summer camp programming in July. And 22% missed the entire week of an entire week of programming in July. And in contrast, 0.01% of participants that paid out of pocket missed 3 days of camp, and none missed an entire week. So I think some of the things that we're hoping to kind of examine is, what can we do internally in terms of kind of helping to fix those things? What can we maybe suggest as improvements to the program? And then if in this presentation something has sparked in anybody on this committee that they had any thoughts or feedback, I'd love to hear it. Some other things that I'm hoping to get from this committee, if you have feedback on it, would be any other barriers when I was kind of going through the program, or any other questions about the program specifically. And then it's around addressing the people that aren't showing up to programs. And then also any other ways that we can get the information out to the community about this program, because I do think that there's value in connecting with the community and letting them know that this program exists, and then how we are hoping the community can use it in terms of coming, registering, and then showing up to our programs to be able to get the full benefit of the program.
Okay,
So the next steps, the next steps, we're just gonna, this is our next steps, yeah. And I've lost my mouse. Oh, there it is. Oh,
okay.
Perfect.
Cassidy, I'm just a bit concerned about time. Could we go to your questions? Could we?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm done. I'm finished.
Could you put that slide back up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with those 3 questions, and I'll start with Hannah, or sorry, maybe I'll start with Liz. If you have got any responses to those questions.
Yep, I'll keep it short and snappy. Cassidy, I want to just notice right off the hop, I think you guys have done a fantastic job addressing the issue of tax non-filers. There's lots of programs that really struggle with, alternative ways to demonstrate income. And I have seen few that have given such depth and breadth of options. So really hats off to you there. If midwives are not already on your list of clinicians who are eligible to refer, I would strongly suggest that you incorporate them. I don't know what your numbers look like, but I wonder if you also might consider reassessing your income cutoff, because we all know the LECA doesn't really tell us all that we need to know, especially these days, but there's a lot going on there. To respond specifically to your question about utilization, again, I'm the operational guy. I really kind of wonder if there's maybe actually a computer solution to that, where just for every individual, they can only be registered in one program at one time, if the programs happen at the same time. That's not to say that you can't have swimming on Tuesdays and skating on Wednesdays, but if it's a day camp and it happens on the same days, then you can only just do one, and then you won't, this is very congruent with what we know about human behavior, right? When you don't pay, you are more likely not to use, because you don't stand to lose anything. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't give that open access. That feels like a risk that's very balanced by the advantage of giving people access to programs. But I am just wondering whether there's just a totally logistical backstop that could maybe be implemented. I don't know.
And we are changing over our software that we're using. And that's one of the things that I have highlighted in terms of ensuring that the team, when we have our new software system, that's something that's just can be put in place, that regardless of if you have affordable access or not, you just logistically can't be in 2 places at once. So we just, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Liz. How about Maggie? Do you have any questions or comments or suggestions?
Hi, yes, Thank you so much for this presentation, Cassidy. So I do have, oh, I just realized my camera wasn't on. I do have some suggestions, and I'm not sure if you have already been using them. So one of your questions is asking how to reach out to more people that in these vulnerable communities. So I wonder if target a specific area that's there are certain buildings are targeting like for low-income people that they would provide affordable housing. So I wonder if slip some flyers in those areas or have to put it on the bulletin board in those areas would be helpful. Or maybe you're already doing this, I don't know, but maybe also have the words out to the recreational centers, to the administrative person or receptionists, just sort of have like information on the information board, like, hey, we have this program for low-income people. If you're interested, you can have a discount or come here for free, that sort of thing. That's my suggestion, but overall, I think you identified some really good barriers. I don't really have any other solutions to the other two questions to help solve, to use the full capacity or not to occupy multiple slots. But yeah, thank you. Hope it helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Thanks. Hannah.
Yeah, great presentation. I used to work in a rec facility, so I can appreciate where these stats are coming from, having been an admin person. Yeah, I don't think there's any escaping of people not showing up when they sign up for something for free. That's just how it is, but changing the software is definitely needed. As for getting it out, I know recently there's been a big uptake in Facebook groups and people reaching out in Facebook groups and being like, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to look for. So I'm not sure if there's a way for the municipality to share in Facebook groups or Instagram groups, things like that, or to have a specific, like utilize the tools that are on social media. Like Instagram has a broadcast channel. And so people can subscribe to like accounts updates, and it's just where you post updates. And so there might be ways to utilize social media if you really want to hit those populations.
Excellent. That's something I can bring. I think we're able to share through community groups, and that's something I can certainly bring to our communications team, because I think, yeah, we did a great like kind of blast on social media, but I don't know what the sharing kind of looked like. So I think that expanding on that is super important. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Hannah. Pam, do you have any comments or suggestions or questions?
No, I don't. I thought the presentation was really great, and I think we're doing real good work. And obviously, as Cassidy had mentioned, we've got this. We always seem to have a technology hurdle. Technology coming on board, and then that transition period. And as soon as we get through that transition period, then there just seems to be more new technology. But that being said, I'm really pleased with this program, and I think it's. I appreciate the comments as well about thinking about how we can get the word out better using social media. Certainly, Hannah, we've talked about that until the cow come home. How can we reach people better? Obviously, as you've seen with Facebook, there's been some problems with sharing news media outlet materials. That's kind of created a bit of a setback to continuing to share factual information that's coming from trusted sources. But we're always looking at ways to do that. And now we have to rethink our Twitter policy and what that means with this new platform X being a subscription-based service only. So anyway, I appreciate all that you're doing, and keep up good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Jackie, do you have any comments, questions, or suggestions?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Cassidy. That was a really great presentation. My question or sort of observation is, how is the work that you're doing connected to 211 Nova Scotia? And I'm saying that in part because we had a meeting with Mike, the ED of 211 Nova Scotia, and they actually do a whole lot of referrals. So they track who calls 211 to ask, is this available in my community? And so they have a really robust administrative data set that really, I think, this could fit with. So I don't know if you've been in touch with the 211 folks, but they just basically have 10 sort of categories of what are the supports or resources in a given community. And when somebody calls, they'll say, where are you located? And then they'll say, you know, these are the kinds of things that are available in your area. And then they don't have the data to see whether or not people actually accepted the referral. Like, you should go check that out. But they are working on that. And that's part of the reason why we met with 211 Nova Scotia. But Mike Myatt would be a good person to connect with at 211 Nova Scotia, because I think this would be a great way to get the information out more broadly. If it was part of their sort of slate, if you will, of referrals to people. So thank you. It was a great presentation.
Thank you so much. And I certainly know that the information about the program is like 211 is aware of the program. However, I've not been in communication in terms of like the data piece. So that's really good information. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Great. Thanks, Cass.
Thanks, Jackie. So thank you very much, Cassidy. I loved your presentation. I'm a researcher, so I love the numbers. I love the stats, and the stats around the people that receive the discount and then don't show that, you know, I find that really, really a challenging question, like you do. And I'm just wondering if, as time goes along, maybe you'll have the resources to.
No. Oh, Jane, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Oh, you should have told me sooner.
I heard the word resources. I asked if you had the resources, and then something weird happened.
So no, it's my fault. Sorry. So I wanted to say thank you. I hope you heard that.
Yes.
I appreciate your presentation. So I love the research that you do and the analysis. That's really important. I'm a researcher myself, and I think that's really important. I was wondering, as time goes forward, maybe you'll have the resources to do an analysis of why the people don't show. I'm thinking that many people that need the discount are more vulnerable. They are less able to kind of deal with little setbacks or illnesses or all manner of things. So if we understood more about why it is that somebody doesn't show up for a whole week. I mean, I, as a middle-class person, might think, oh, well, they just took off to do something fun. But it might be something has happened within the family that's caused a big problem. So that would just be my suggestion. If we can
Absolutely
learn a little bit more about what it is that's caused them not to be able to be there.
Absolutely.
Anyways, thank you for your presentation. Wonderfully informative, and keep up the good work. Okay.
So Jane, I just want to say one thing, and I'm on the call, and it's Angela Green. I'm Director of Recreation Programming. So
Angela, welcome.
I was here just to kind of add information if I was needed, but I just wanted to add, we just ran the numbers for the first half of the year on the Affordable Access Program for recreation, and we're at almost 900,000. And so keep in mind the majority of our big ticket months are in the summer, but still we're probably going to reach $1 million this year in discounts, which I'm sure the counselors can agree. It's a good news story because we want to be the happiness that families have with the economy the way it is, with not having enough money for rent and food. We give joy to these families, and we're so happy to be able to do so and happy to have the support of council. But at the same time, it's a sad story that there's so many people that have financial need. And as we know, looking at our analysis, and Cassidy can talk to this, there's pockets of HRM where we know that there's a significant number of people that really should be taking part in this affordable access program that aren't. So this could even grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm looking at Councillor Lovelace right now, because as we know, it's good. It could grow to be beyond what we're even expecting at this point.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity for families, and it's awesome. So we need to get the word out to everybody and have people that need it be able to participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It has, in my opinion, it's not just healthier or happier people, it's healthier people, healthier communities, better for all of us. It's a good use of our tax dollars. So, in my opinion, so thank you for that. time's moving on here. Tracy, I'm staff update here from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and thank you for being here.
Let me unplug my microphone, my earphones. I apologize that Bailey was not able to be here today. She had a bit of a family emergency that she had to attend to. So she's provided me with a bit of an update, which will be very short. So Gender Equity Week is coming, September 17th to 23rd. This year's theme is United for Gender Equity, Stronger Together. And according to the website, this theme highlights Canada's commitment to inclusivity and equality by recognizing and celebrating the diversity within our country. As part of our work internally for Gender Equity Week, we will be doing some more training on GBA Plus, and I'm going to have to remember it's SGBA Plus, so I will ensure that we do some updates there. So that will be happening for municipal employees. And just briefly to respond to the earlier question, are we applying this lens? We're not necessarily applying it yet because people on our team are really not that aware. So what the first step is for us as the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, African Nova Scotian Affairs, is to provide the training. Let's get people aware. Our new CAO is really put, and I'm tickled pink, an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're getting a lot of support, and we're getting a lot of our business units looking at their work through a GBA Plus lens, and they don't even know that they're doing it. So that's exciting. So we will be doing that training. The other thing that Bailey has asked me to update you on, and that she's probably mentioned before, is that we will be holding our Indigenous Women and Two-Spirit Leadership Summit and Campaign School. As we are aware, we're coming up to an election year in 2024. And in the past, for the 2020 election, we did, working with FCM, we did a whole campaign school for diverse women. This year, FCM was able to support us with funding so that we could do a campaign school specifically for Indigenous and Two-Spirited individuals. So that's going to happen on September 22nd. During that campaign school, we are going to be looking at things like Civics 101, Mi'kmaq governance, municipal governments, how advisory boards and committees work, and the challenges that women face taking on leadership role, not only in local government or municipal government, but also in government in their home communities. So this is a pretty exciting event that we're working. Again, we were funded by CanWill through FCM. And those were Bailey's two big updates. We are hoping that the community at large will be doing some things to acknowledge and celebrate Gender Equity Week. And as a D&I team, we are focusing internally this year to promote Gender Equity Week. So, Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy, for that update. And thank you, Bailey, for having prepared it. And appreciate that very much. Any comments or questions for Tracy?
I just want to say thank you to Tracy for indulging me as the governance nerd in that update on GBA Plus. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay, the next item on the agenda was just a possibility of having a conversation about any motions that you might have wanted to discuss or bring forward with regard to human trafficking. I think given the time, I'll just ask if anybody has given any thought to that at this point, or is that something we might continue to bring up at a future meeting? Anybody?
Yeah, so
oh, Hannah.
This is something I thought about a lot this summer. And it actually coincides with the Women's Safety Assessment. And it was specifically around parks and streets. I live in a more rural area, and sex trafficking is quite high in my community. And noticing that along the bus routes, most of the bus stops along the streets that I live near don't have overhead lighting. They're hard to see. They're in trees. And so it's very easy for young kids to be picked up. And we don't have access to the city except for one bus. So it's easy for people to get picked up and not be seen as they're just not lit at all. And the other thing is parks like Shuby. I was in Shuby Park this summer and I was with somebody who had gotten injured in the park, and there's no signage anywhere. Like, it's very hard to direct 911 where you are in places like Shuby Park because there's not even color coded. There's no information there whatsoever about where you are once you're in the park. And so looking at spaces and trying to figure out if it's worth adding in really good designation areas so that if an emergency happens, you can quickly tell somebody where you're at. Because Shuby is big, it's in the heart of the city, and you can get lost quite easily in there. So those were my two big things, as they hit quite home, and I've seen situations go poorly in both areas.
Liz, do you want to comment, get in on this?
I'll wait till everyone has had a chance to respond to Hannah's.
Hannah, I'm thinking that those are two big issues. And there may be some action that we as a Women's Advisory Committee can pursue on that. So maybe that would be something I suggest that maybe you and I and Elizabeth have a conversation about, giving some thought to that, and then bringing it back to the committee. Would you be amenable to doing that?
Absolutely.
And of course, anybody else that wanted to participate in that sort of pre-conversation, and then we'll bring it back to the committee as a whole.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Liz.
I have a few things I would like to say. Everyone, out of courtesy, please pretend to be surprised that I'm going to talk for as long as you let me. I am struggling to say this the right way, so I ask and thank everyone in advance for their patience with me. I'm going to say a couple of things, and I also invite everyone to feel free to be like, well, that sounds like a you problem, Liz. Take it away from committee. I'm wondering if maybe, I'll start by saying I have given some thought to some motions that could happen around the presentations that we had at our last meeting. But before I propose any of them for discussion, I'm wondering if we can perhaps take a small amount of time to discuss whether we may consider rethinking the way in which we do presentations and invite presentations. I joined this committee pretty recently. I joined it at the beginning of the year, I think. And there have been quite a few presentations since then, and I have found it challenging to understand what the role of the presentation is. Because in some cases, it seemed like there were, like Akuma's presentation, which was wonderful, springs to mind. They were coming with a really clear ask. Like, they were basically asking us to recommend a zoning change. To me, like, that's emotion. That's like being handed emotion on a silver platter. And I wasn't sure, because that one was actually my first meeting. So I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm just gonna watch and learn. There wasn't discussion around that. Like, there wasn't discussion around like, well, they brought us an action item. Do we want to move forward with that action item or not? And emotion didn't come out of that, but also like the reason why emotion didn't come out of that wasn't clear to me. And I was like, okay, well, that's maybe this committee doesn't do that kind of thing, which is cool because lots of committees don't. If that's going to be the case, like if we're not like super action itemy, I wonder if it might be helpful for our presenters to do some expectation setting beforehand. The presentations that we received last meeting were extremely powerful. And I felt very grateful to those presenters for the gift that they gave us of us learning at their expense. But those were traumatic. Like, there was a lot of graphic content that was discussed, and it was the topic of the presentations was published, but the nature of the presentations was, I think we all might have benefited from like a little bit of preparation about what we might experience. And these are public meetings. So I think it may have been beneficial for people who may be watching to have had some discussion of what they might experience in listening to that material. And you know what, that's people describing their trauma, right? Like that's, you can't censor that necessarily. And that's their experience, and it's their choice whether that's something that they want to share publicly or not. But for me, if we don't have a clear idea about what we want to do with that, I'm feeling worried about the ethics of asking people to have that level of disclosure, or inviting people to have that level of disclosure, or not practicing expectation setting before they have that level of disclosure, if we don't actually know what we want to do with that information. So I really felt quite uncomfortable about that. And I feel quite uncomfortable about that in that moment. And I just wanted to name that, in case anyone was also feeling the same way, because one of my great gifts is that often I say the thing that other people don't say, because I'm saying things all the time. So, you know, I'm bound to hit on one of them eventually. Yeah. But also I wondered if it's possible, for when new people come on board to do kind of a bit of a 101. I read the terms of reference, and I read all the materials, but sometimes like terms of reference,
sure,
there's like the official terms of reference, and then there's like what we actually do. So I think it might be beneficial for new members to have a quick 101 on like, here's what we are actually trying to accomplish. Here are our action items. Here's what comes out of our committee. And to get a sense of the scope of what's achievable for us and what isn't achievable for us. And also to have a think, all of us together, and then to communicate our conclusions clearly to our presenters about like, here's what you can expect when you come to present to this committee. Here's what you can expect to come out of it, so that they have the opportunity to calibrate their presentations accordingly, like in an informed way.
So Liz, you've raised some great points. And I'm thinking that's worthy of a discussion of all of us. We can't do that next meeting because we have an agenda for the next meeting. We have some things that have come up now but do you think it would be helpful for all of us to have a discussion around that at our November meeting, as we're coming into a new year?
Yeah, I would love that. And I kind of wonder if maybe we could, not to trample on anybody, if they have like some motions that they're feeling like super confident about that they really want to put forward right away. But I wonder if maybe it might make sense to think about what it is that we're trying to carry forward from presentations. And then with that in mind, to think about what motions we want to carry forward from the ones we've already received. But I'm open to all approaches.
So what I hear you saying is, let's kind of get the big picture. What are we trying to do? And from that, then go drill down to specific motions.
Yeah, but also if that's just like me and my feelings, then I also have some motions that I can lob out and we can discuss those.
I think we don't have time at this juncture to do that. But I think your point, this would be my opinion as a chairperson, your point about kind of understanding what it is we're trying to do is a very helpful one. I think it's worthy of discussion. And we have done that in the past as we've kind of tried to set priorities for the year. We've done that, but we haven't taken it to the next step, which is not just what our priorities are for learning, but then what do we do with that? And how do we handle that? So I think that's really a good time to do it is in the November meeting. So I think we'll proceed. Pam, did you want to step in here?
Yes, thank you. I'm really, really glad you raised those points, Liz. Part of the acceptance of presentations or the seeking of presentations to an advisory committee is to make sure that we are able to make recommendations to HRM's executive committee. And so any motion that we make would be to make a recommendation to that executive committee. And whatever that motion would be, would in a sense provide educational opportunities for the committee, for the council, for executive committee and for council, but also to ensure that we move forward as a committee on our strategic plan, on our annual plan. And so, I think having the presentations that we had on human trafficking provided all of us incredible information, while at the same time opportunity to build strong relationships with the women who came to present. And I continue to be completely just blown away by their willingness to share their experiences and educate the public and elected officials and staff on the realities of their lives and the lives of loved ones. So, you know, I think that it does sometimes take a long time. I refer it to as chewing on emotion because, you know, you think about, okay, well, what can I do with this? How, you know, what do I want the municipality to do with this? Where should this go next? And so I think this is a really good opportunity, perhaps, to even, I think, Jane, as chair, to maybe put a little bit of a topic on a future agenda focused on pulling together motions. And we could certainly use support from the clerk's office, talk a little bit about what that looks like and how, you know, what a successful motion is and those kinds of things. Because again, this committee is providing learning opportunity to all committee members as well on local government, how local government operates. So, you know, I think there's a bunch of different things here, but the ethical question, yeah, I agree with you on that as far as setting expectations, understanding expectations, and realizing expectations. And those are really important, and you can't do that if you don't have that conversation ahead of time. So that is important. And again, I'll just put a reference to Elizabeth, but potentially there's an opportunity to look at terms of reference as far as presentations go and ensure that there is a clear guideline within the terms of reference for this committee on presentations and setting expectations for presentations. I do realize that there's only a few minutes left. I'll stop talking now, but I just really want to underline the fact that, Liz, I sincerely appreciate the comment that you've made. And yeah, it's duly noted. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Me too. I as well appreciate your comments. Pam, over to you. Council update.
Okay, I'm going to be really quick because we have a Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board public hearing that starts in 8 minutes on our electoral boundaries. So HRM is undergoing this massive review because we're growing so fast, so our boundaries are shifting. HRM, as we've discussed in the past, has decided to put forward a recommendation to keep 16 councillors and 16 districts with 1 mayor. So we'll see where that goes through this public hearing process that we had. The hearing started this morning, and now we've got a public hearing tonight. For my council update, I will just very briefly say that it's been what a summer. Wildfires, flooding. We've had our staff are exhausted. Public works staff, contractors. There's not enough labor. There's not enough material. There's not enough time to get all the roads fixed that we need to be fixed. We've been really focused on doing that good work. School started today, so you know, really concerned. We've got a new school that's opened up in West Bedford. So that, you know, was a brand new roundabout was put in place on Larry Utech, brand new school opened. I wanted to also mention, I think some of you may have seen the news that the Swissair disaster, Swissair 111 disaster ceremony for the 25th anniversary took place this past weekend. Mayor Savage and I attended a beautiful ceremony at Peggy's Cove. I also attended a lovely nighttime ceremony in Bayswater. It was incredible to honor those 229 people who passed away. You can actually watch that. Veterans Affairs Canada recorded it, and it is online on Facebook. I want to mention that we have one new executive director. Her name is Jacqueline Hamilton. She is the new executive director for planning and development. Kelly Denty has retired. So Jacqueline has come to us from the city of St. John. We have a search underway for our new Auditor General. Evangeline Coleman-Sad has moved on after a long and lustrous career with HRM. And as Councillor Becky Kent mentioned, we have a search underway for the new police chief. There's lots of administrative changes that are happening. We have a new bylaw, M300, that's looking at micro-mobility. So some of you who maybe walking around downtown and tripping over these e-scooters. You know, you've seen sort of this chaos with e-scooters all over the place. So we now have regulations and a bylaw in place to ensure that those are, you know, respecting licenses and different permits and processing fees and all that kind of stuff with the e-scooters and shared micro mobility services. Really exciting zoning changes for African Nova Scotian communities. We directed the Chief Administrative Officer to look at all of the African Nova Scotian communities within HRM to review the zoning, to consider how we can develop a zone that acknowledges the historic development of those communities and settlement of those communities, and looking at sort of the fabric and the unique characteristics of each of those, so we can solidify those boundaries and ensure that there's no more encroachment and that we can strengthen those communities. As you all know, we're undergoing a regional plan review. I can't stress enough how important this is. This is monumental work that's taking place to create a vision for the next, you know, few decades as what the municipality is going to look like, considering the rapid growth that we're seeing with population. And within that regional plan, we're looking at a comprehensive secondary planning process for suburban HRM, and looking at, you know, what suburban communities will look like. Because we did the center plan, and now that's done, and now we're kind of moving outside of that, the middle of the onion. HRM has undertaken a hazard, risk, and vulnerability assessment. If you go to halifax.ca, you can click on an icon for the hazard, risk, and vulnerability assessment. There's a survey in there. That is ongoing work with emergency management and considering how we at the municipality actually can access the information about vulnerable communities and ensure that their resources and the tools and the knowledge and volunteers and staff and infrastructure are in place to support those communities during and, you know, for potential wildfire, flooding, hurricanes, and so on and so forth. Council also passed bylaw T1200. You may have seen this in the news. This bylaw includes provisions to ban violators of this bylaw for up to 6 months on Halifax Transit. We are really happy to move this forward due to the increase in violence and aggression and assaults happening between passengers and our transit operators. So it's a way for us to keep our transit operators safe, but to more importantly, keep transit itself safe and as a viable option for folks, especially for women and vulnerable users of transit. So this is not only just looking at the transit buses, it's, you know, at the buses itself, it's looking at the bus stops. So when you mentioned earlier about, you know, not having enough light, Hannah, at our bus stops, that all kind of like, that's part of of our viewpoint is how can we ensure that this is safe? And as we have mentioned before, HRM now has a community safety division, and that's headed by Bill Moore. And so we are focused on you know, accelerating the resources for community safety across HRM. We didn't meet a lot during the summer. We did have a little bit of time off, but we do have a meeting on Tuesday, and the council package for Tuesday will be out on tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday at noon.
Yeah.
So you can have a look at the agenda. It'll be released to the public, halifax.ca, and you can get a sense of what we'll be talking about. You can also watch online. Because I know it's, you know, grab your popcorn. It's really exciting. Thanks so much for this opportunity, Madam Chair, to chat about what we're doing in council.
Well, thank you for your report, Pam. And we're looking forward to hearing more from you at the next meeting. So I just want to remind everybody that the next meeting is on October 6th. It's an in-person meeting, and we are very, very grateful that all of the women councillors are going to be with us and be talking a little bit about their experience coming into politics, serving on municipal council. And in addition, we're going to be joined by Laura Lee Nickel, who was a councillor who was really very instrumental in the formation of the Women's Advisory Committee and is now an MLA. So she will also briefly share her experience. So what I want to just remind the members is that this will be a public meeting. It will be in person in City Hall. And this is an opportunity for you to invite people you know who you think might benefit from hearing the presentation. And also, it's a way for us to, I think, honor our counselors by having a really good attendance to listen to what they have to say. So my strong encouragement to round up your respective communities and encourage them to come and attend this meeting. Anything you'd like to say about that, Pam?
I would just say that it is October the 7th and it starts at 4:30 and we are doing that in Halifax Hall, I believe. Is that correct? Yes. So we'll be here at City Hall, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a nice opportunity to, especially to come together and talk about our experiences, but also to encourage the next round of folks to step up and consider putting their name on the ballot.
For sure. Elizabeth, you've got your hand up. What is it you want to say?
I just wanted to provide a correction. It is actually October the 5th, Thursday, October the 5th is when the meeting is.
Okay, we've had 3 dates now.
For the longest time, had it in my head that it was the 6th. So now I know for
it's the
complete certainty that it's the 5th.
Okay, October 5. Okay, October 5. We'll all be at the same place at the same time. Please,
5. Perfect.
Please invite your friends. 4:30, Halifax Hall, and we look forward to those presentations. And thank you very much for all your thought-provoking comments and input today, committee members. You're awesome. Awesome group of women. Thank you for that. There's no further business. I will call for an adjournment. Moved by Hannah. The meeting is adjourned, and Jackie wants to say something here. Jackie, are you trying to
I
get
think
in?
they were just moving to adjourn.
Oh, okay. Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
Perfect.
Also, the agenda on the Halifax website says October 6th.
We'll get that fixed.
Oh, gosh.